you have any questions about the midterm exam? No?
No, maybe the sentence about when I send the question in the
Oh.
line group,
Oh.
maybe the word of price, it should be decrease.
Yeah, the interest rate decrease
Oh, yeah.
decreases from 10
Oh, yes.
to 8%. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so to the 1 year down, the price is still the same. The price is still $1,000. We just use the original interest rate to calculate the price, which is given by we discount the coupon interest by 1 plus 10%, and by maturity, $1,000. Oops.
It's not 0.8?
Oh, no. Yeah, for 1 year.
1 year.
For 1 year, we still use the original interest rate.
1 year, not 3 year.
Uh-huh.
Oh.
Let me try the green color. Yeah, so the price for a 1 year bond is still $1,000. And then the growth rate of the capital gain, we sell it at $1,000 and purchase it at $1,000. Okay, so actually we have no capital gain, and we divide it by the price that we invest and multiply it by 100%, which is 0. Okay. And then to calculate the rate of return, so in addition to the growth rate of capital gain, we also need to account for the initial current yield, which is 10%. So 10% plus 0% is still 10%. Okay, so that's the 1 year case. Okay, then 3 year. Okay, actually starting from 2 year case, we just use 8%. Okay, so the 3 year bound, we just hold it for 1 year. So the remaining years, the remaining number of years, is 2. So during the 2 years, we use 8% to discount. And then the price for the 3 year bond is $1,035. $0.665. Then the growth rate of capital gain. We purchased it at $1,000. And we sell it at $1,035.665 and divide it by $1,000 and multiply it by 100%. Which is
3.56.
56. Oh, 567. Yeah. And then the rate of return. We add the current yield 10% to 3.567.
Oh, why not 8%?
8%. Oh,
No.
8% is the interest rate we use to discount.
Oh,
To discount the coupon interest and by the maturity date, we will have the face value. So this is 13.567%. Then 5 year. Okay, the 5 year bond, we just hold it for 1 year. So the remaining, the number of remaining years is 4. Okay, so to calculate the price, okay, we just discount $100, okay, for the remaining 4 years. And then by maturity date, we obtain the face value. We also need to use 8% to discount it. Okay, so we end up having 1,066.243. Okay, so to calculate the rate of capital gain, okay, we deduct $1,000 from 1,066.243, okay, and divide it by $1,000 and multiply it by 100%. So that's 6.624. Yeah. Okay. Then rate of return, we added to 10%, the current yield. Which is 16.624%. Do you have any other questions? Oh. And then why is the secondary market important? There are two main reasons. The first one is secondary markets make the financial instruments more liquid. And the second reason, secondary markets determine the price of a security that the issuing firm sells in the primary market. Okay. And two reasons, okay, in detail for the first subtitle. Okay. Secondary markets make it easier and quicker to sell these financial instruments to raise cash. That is, they make the financial instruments more liquid. And the increased liquidity of these instruments makes them more desirable and thus easier for the issuing firm to sell in the primary market. As about the second subtitle, okay, there are three reasons. Secondary market determine the price of security that the issuing firms sell in the primary market. And the investors who buy securities in the primary market will pay the issuing corporation no more than the price they think the secondary market will set for this security. And the higher the securities price in the secondary market, the higher the price the issuing firm will receive for a new security in the primary market, and hence the greater the amount of financial capital it can raise. Okay. That's question 1. Okay. Then question 2, 7 differences between dealers and brokers. Okay, the first one, a broker is a person who executes the trade on behalf of others, whereas a dealer, okay, is a person who trades business on their own behalf. Okay, and the second difference is that a dealer is a person who will buy and sell securities on their own account. Okay, and a broker is one who will buy and sell securities for their clients. Okay, the third reason, when dealing with securities, dealers make all decisions in respect of purchases. A broker will only make purchases as per the client's wishes. Okay, fourth, While dealers have all the rights and freedom regarding the buying and selling of securities, brokers seldom have this freedom and these rights. Okay. Fifth, when talking about the experience, a broker has only a little experience in the field compared to dealers. Okay. And the sixth, a broker is paid a commission for transacting the business. Brokers do not have any assets, but only act as middlemen between sellers and buyers. Okay. The seventh, a dealer is not paid a commission. Okay. And a dealer is a primary principal. Dealers will have assets of their own, which they sell at a larger stage. And the third question, what are the 6 factors that affect monetary base? The first one is open market operation. Okay? And the second one, okay, when a depositor just shifts its checkable deposit into currency. Okay. And also the third reason is that when financial institutions have lower liquidity, they might have the discount loan from the Fed. Okay. Then the fourth, float. Okay. The fifth, treasury deposits at the Fed. Okay. The sixth, interventions in the foreign exchange market. And then the fourth question, okay, it asks about the convertible bonds. Okay, so convertible bonds have the additional feature of allowing the holder to convert them into a specified number of shares of stock at any time up to the maturity date. This feature makes these convertible bonds more desirable to prospective purchasers than bonds without it, and it allows the corporation to reduce its interest payments because the bonds can increase in value if the price of the stock appreciates sufficiently. Because the outstanding amount of both convertible and non-convertible bonds for any given corporation is small, corporate bonds are not as liquid as other securities such as U.S. government bonds. Although the size of the corporate bond market is smaller than that of the stock market, with the amount of corporate bonds outstanding less than 1/3 that of stocks, the volume of new corporate bonds issued each year is greater than the volume of new stock issues. So that's about our midterm exam. Any questions? Okay. Actually, I have you can see your grades online. Your midterm exam grade. Yeah. Any questions? No question. Okay. And I have a homework for you to do. Yeah. And for your homework today, okay, it is on iLearning discussion forum. Okay, so actually I'm going to teach you the liquidity premium preferred habitat theory. Okay, and there are 4 types of yield curves. Okay, and I would like for you to use the liquidity premium theory to explain, okay, why the panel A, okay, it has a steeply upward sloping yield curve. okay, and B has a mildly upward sloping yield curve. Okay, for C, well, the yield curve is flat. For D, okay, the yield curve is downward sloping. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to teach you the risk and term structure of interest rates. Okay. In this chapter, we will examine the sources and the causes of fluctuations in interest rates relative to one another and look at a number of theories that explain these fluctuations. Okay. And I'm going to identify and explain 3 factors explaining the risk structure of interest rates and explain the 3 theories of why interest rates vary across maturities. Okay. The first topic deals with risk structure of interest rates. Okay, so we assume that all the bonds have same maturity. Okay, they have same maturity. Okay, so maybe all of them are short-term bond or long-term bond. However, they have different interest rates. Okay, and these 3 factors cause the different interest rates. The first one is default risk. Okay, how do we define default? Okay. Oh, we know that, okay, if we invest in a bond, okay, if it is a long-term bond, then the bond will provide the coupon interest, okay, every year. And upon the maturity date, okay, the investors will have the face value. Okay, so when we say default, it means that, okay, by the maturity date or in every year, okay, the issuers, okay, does not provide the investors the coupon interest or the face value, then we call that default. Okay. So if we compare the U.S. government bond and corporate bond, okay, which bond do you think has a higher default risk?
With what?
Oh, okay. Well, one is U.S. government bond. The other one is corporate bond.
Corporate bond.
Yeah. So usually the corporate bond has a higher default risk. Okay. So if the corporate bond has a higher default risk, then the investors will tend to invest in the U.S. government bond. Okay. And then they lower their demand for the corporate bonds. Okay, and we'll see the price difference, okay, between the U.S. government bond and the corporate bonds. Okay, so let's see this figure. Okay, we compare corporate bond market and the U.S. Treasury bond market. Okay, we assume that both bonds have the same maturity. Okay, so if now the corporate bond market has a higher default risk, okay, then the investors tend to lower their demand for corporate bonds. So we see the demand curve for the corporate bond shift to the left. Okay, that just lowers its price. Okay, whereas in the U.S. Treasury bond market, okay, because its default risk is still the same. Okay, that just attracts more investors to invest in the Treasury bond market. Okay, so the investors' demand for Treasury bonds increases. That just increases the price of the Treasury bonds. Okay, but remember, there is a inverse relationship between the price and bond yield. Okay, the interest rate of the bond. Okay, as the corporate bond market, okay, the price of the corporate bond goes down. Okay, we realize that then the bond yield, okay, for corporate bond increases. Okay, whereas in the U.S. Treasury bond market, we see an increase in the price, okay, it means that now the interest rate in the treasury bond market goes down. Okay, so we have seen a difference in both bond market, okay, in the price and also in the interest rates. Okay, so the difference between the price of corporate bond market and the treasury bond market, okay, and it is also the difference between the interest rate of the corporate bond and the U.S. treasury bond. Okay, so the difference between that we call risk premium. Okay, we call that risk premium. Okay, so again, an increase in default risk shifts the demand curve for corporate bond left, okay, and shifts the demand curve for treasury bonds to the right, okay, which raises the price of treasury bonds and lowers the price of corporate bonds, and therefore lowers the interest rate on the treasury bond and raises the rate on corporate bonds, thereby increasing the spread between the interest rates on corporate bonds versus treasury bonds.
It means the curve shifting together.
Yeah.
If the corporate bonds to the left and the government to
Go to the right.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
It's always like that.
Oh, yeah, yeah. When we see an increase in the default risk,
Ah.
yeah, and then we compare both markets.
Mhm.
Mhm. Okay, now let's see the second factor, liquidity. How do you define liquidity?
The rate in which assets can be converted into cash.
Oh, yeah, the cost of selling or buying the bonds. Okay. And the other way we measure the liquidity is based upon the number, okay, the number of purchases and sales, okay, of the bond. Okay, so that's liquidity. That's the relative ease with which an asset can be converted into cash, okay, the cost of selling a bond, and the number of buyers and sellers in a bond market. Okay, so the same. If now we compare corporate bond and the U.S. government bond, okay, now we assume that the liquidity of the U.S. Treasury bond increases, okay, what will happen to the risk premium? Let me draw the figure. Okay, so if we assume that the liquidity of the US government bonds increases, okay, which means that, okay, now the US Treasury bond has a relative ease, okay, has a higher ease to be converted from the bond to cash, okay, so that will, okay, attract more investors to invest in the Treasury bond. Okay, then people's demand for Treasury bond will increase. That will shift the demand curve for the Treasury bond, okay, to the right. Okay, then in the US Treasury bond market, okay, the price of the Treasury bond will increase. Okay, and because of the inverse relationship between the bond price and interest rate, okay, when the bond price of Treasury bond increases, it means that the interest rate of the Treasury bond goes down. Okay. Then while people are increasing their demand for Treasury bond, okay, they just lower their demand for corporate bond market. So their demand for the corporate bond shift to the left. That just lowers the price of the corporate bond. Okay. So it goes down from P1C to P2C. Okay. And as the price goes down, actually its interest rate goes up. Okay. So we have detected a difference between the bond prices and also the interest rate. Okay. Okay. So in this case, the corporate bond market's interest rate goes up, whereas the US Treasury bond market's interest rate goes down. Okay. This is called the risk premium. The difference between the US Treasury bond interest rate and corporate bond interest rate. Okay, so when bonds have the same maturity, okay, but one of them, okay, if the US Treasury bonds liquidity increases, okay, that will shift the investors' demand for both bonds, and that just changes the price, okay, of both bonds. And then we have seen a difference in the interest rates. Okay, so the risk premium is represented by the absolute value of the interest rate. Okay, we say I2C and I2T. Okay, the difference, okay, in both interest rate. You cannot see that clearly.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Because the black one, the black pen doesn't work. I can just use the green and red one.
for the right explanation. PT1, was it?
Oh.
Yes, PT1 or
What I mean is that the price of the treasury bond increases, so the interest rate of treasury bond goes down.
So it's the same with the percentage of the T1.
Sorry. Thank you for correcting me. Okay, yeah, and here, okay, I should not use P1C. Okay, so what it says is that the price of corporate bonds goes down. Okay, and what it means is that the interest rate of the corporate bond increases.
So the value of this premium should be positive or negative, or can be negative.
Yeah, that's why I add an absolute value. It should be a positive value. And the third factor, okay, we have gone through two factors. Okay, the first one is the default risk. Okay, and the second factor is the liquidity. Okay, the third factor is tax consideration, income tax consideration. Okay. So remember, in the beginning of the class, okay, in the beginning of the semester, we just introduced you some types of bonds. Okay, so one of them is issued by the Treasury, U.S. Treasury. We call that the Treasury bill or the U.S. Treasury bond. Okay, that's issued by the federal government. When the federal government has a budget deficit, then the Treasury just issues either the short-term bond, okay, the Treasury bill, or the long-term bond, government bond, okay, in order to help the federal government to offset the budget deficit. Okay, another bond, okay, is issued by the state or local government. Okay, and that bond we call that municipal bond. Okay, so all the bonds are issued by government, but some of them are issued by the federal government. Okay, I'm sorry, they are issued by the Treasury. Okay, and one of them is issued by the state or local government. Okay, so why do the state or local government, okay, issue the bonds, municipal bond? Because they need to do some development. Okay, such as they might want to contribute to the education, okay, to schools or the highways, okay, or they might conduct some government program, okay. So the state or local governments, they also need, they need to have the funds in order for them to contribute to their local or state development. Okay, so that's municipal bonds. Okay. However, if we consider the default risk, actually the municipal bonds might have a higher default risk. Okay, you know that a lot of people would like to go to California to study because there are a lot of top schools, such as the University of California, Berkeley, UC Berkeley, okay, or maybe the Valley. Yeah, so a lot of good schools. However, California's state government actually has a bankruptcy a few years ago. Okay, and we also know that, especially during the summer, okay, because of the weather, it is too hot, and then they have some fire, okay, for the wood, okay, for the forest. Okay, so because of that, the California state government actually has a very huge government deficit. Okay, so if municipal banks have a higher default risk, okay, then why does this bank still attract many investors to invest? That's because of the income tax consideration. Okay, when we invest in the government bond, treasury bill, or municipal bonds, okay, we might be faced with this. Okay, the coupon interest we have received, it will be taxed. Okay, it will be taxed by the federal government.
It means we get tax.
For example, if I invest in the U.S. government bond and I have a $100 coupon interest, that will be counted in my, because that's one of my part of my income. So that will be taxed by the government. Yeah.
So our coupon is reduced by tax.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So the coupon interest, okay, we obtain from the government bond, okay, or treasury bill, okay, or municipal bonds might be taxed by the federal government. Okay. However, if we invest in municipal bonds, okay, the coupon interest we have earned from municipal bonds might be exempt from the local, from the federal government, okay, because the municipal bonds, okay, the interest, okay, we have earned, okay, is exempt. Okay, so the interest we earned from the municipal bonds, okay, might be exempt from the federal government, okay, or both the federal government and the local government. Okay, so the municipal bonds are very popular to the wealthy people, to the top income people. Okay. So let me ask you a question. We understand that, okay, during President Obama's administration, okay, President Obama increased the income tax rate, especially to the wealthy people, okay, from 35% to 38%. Okay, so what do you think? Yeah, when President Obama increased the income tax rate, especially to wealthy people, okay, it increased from 35% to 38%.
I think the regulation that established by the Obama regulation at the last regime, that Obama wants to to make equality of about the income distribution, because when they're using the aggressive tax, and then the value added from the tax will be being for another program, and then whole people, the poor people, and then the homeless can get the gain from the tax. Means to reduce the inequality.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, so by doing that, by increasing the income tax rate, particularly to the wealthy people, okay, President Obama wants to diminish the inequality of income. Okay, so actually that's what President Obama do. Okay, so because of the increased income tax rate. Okay, so now let's take a look at what happens to the wealthy people. Okay, can I just lower down the slide? Okay. So when President Obama increased the income tax rate, for the wealthy people, and now these wealthy people just attempt to, invest more in the municipal bonds. So their demand for municipal bonds increases. That just increases the price of municipal bonds. And because there is an inverse relationship between the price of bond and interest rate, so we have seen a decrease in the interest rate of municipal bonds. Whereas in the treasury bond market, the wealthy people just decline their demand for the treasury bond. That just drive down the price of treasury bond. And then we have seen an increase in the interest rate of treasury bond. So the tax-free status for the municipal bonds shifts the demand for municipal bonds to the right, and shifts the demand for treasury bonds to the left. And with the result that municipal bonds end up with a higher price and a lower interest rate than the treasury bonds. So that's what happened. In 2013, President Obama just increased the income tax rate on high income taxpayers from 35% to 39%. So by using the supply and demand analysis, the increase in income tax rates for wealthy people help to lower the interest rate on municipal bonds relative to the interest rate on treasury bonds. So that's why we have seen a risk premium between the municipal bonds and treasury bonds. Then do you know what happens later?
Municipal bonds, it means tax-free.
When President Obama increased the income tax rate on high income taxpayers, so these wealthy people, they attempt to invest more in the municipal bonds because the interest they earn from municipal bonds will be tax-free. It will not be taxed. That just attracts the wealthy people to invest.
Yes.
Then after President Obama, that's President Trump. And then what Trump do? What Trump did during his term? He decreased the income tax rate. And then we have seen an inverse, an inverse relationship between the municipal bonds and treasury bonds. which policy do you like better? President Obama's or President Trump's? Because Obama just increased the interest rate, the income tax rate for wealthy people. However, President Trump, actually his policy might be favored by the wealthy people. President Trump just cuts the income tax rate. So what do you think? Any opinions?
It's for a stimulus for the wealthy people to invest more. Yeah, because Trump like money.
Yeah. He's originally a businessman.
Yeah. I think for that.
Yeah.
That's why. If the tax is very high, American people don't want to invest.
Yeah. So when President Trump cut the income tax rate, actually he just encouraged a lot of people to invest in the stock market. Yeah. During his term, we have seen a huge increase in the stock market, either in the Dow Jones or Nasdaq or S&P 500. Yeah. So a lot of people, they are very they are in favor of that. Okay, so in summary, bonds with the same maturity have different interest rates because of three factors. One is default risk, one is liquidity, and the other one is tax considerations. Then let me just pick up the second topic of this chapter, term structure of interest rates. So in the first part, we talked about bonds with same maturities. They have different interest rates due to default risk, due to liquidity, due to tax consideration. The second part of this chapter, it assumes differently. It says bonds with identical risk, identical liquidity, and identical tax consideration may have different interest rate. Why is that? Because the time remaining to maturity is different. So even though bonds have the same risk, the same liquidity, the same tax considerations, however, their interest rates are different. It's because of different maturity. So yield curve. What is the yield curve? It is a plot of the yield on bonds with different terms to maturity, but the same risk, liquidity, and tax considerations. The yield curve might be upward sloping. Upward sloping means that the long-term rates are above short-term rates. Flat, the short-term and long-term rates are the same. It could be inverted. What it means is that long-term rates are below short-term rates. Keep this in mind. So yield curve is a plot of the yield on bonds with different terms to maturity, but they have the same risk, liquidity, and tax consideration. It is upward sloping, flat, or inverted. Upward sloping means that the long-term interest rates are above short-term interest rates. Flat, short-term and long-term interest rates are the same. Inverted, long-term interest rates are below short-term interest rates. Let's see this figure. Around this time, from 1950 to 1970, what happens? Well, the 3-month bill rate, okay, the green one, okay, it has the lowest interest rates. And then the 3 to 5 year averages, okay, bond has a higher interest rate. And sometimes it is higher or lower than the 20-year bond averages. Okay. How about this? Okay, when it is during 1980s, okay, around the time the short-term interest rate, okay, is higher than the 3 to 5 year averages. Okay, it is even higher than the 20-year bond averages. Okay, and after the 1980s, what happens? The 20-year bond has the highest interest rate, higher than the 3 to 5 year averages, and even higher than the 3-month treasury bills. Okay, so if we draw the yield curve after the 1980s, okay, what will we have? Okay, let me use the blackboard. After the 1980s, okay, when we draw the yield curve, the horizontal axis represents the maturity, and the vertical axis represents the interest rate. So after the 1980s, okay, apparently most of the time, the longer term interest rate, okay, 20-year bond averages, okay, has the highest interest rate. Okay, so that's 20 years, 3 to 5 year, and 3 months. Okay, so after the 1980s, the 20-year bond has the highest interest rate, and then 3 to 5 year, the lowest is 3 months. Okay, and then we connect these points. That's the yield curve. So it is upward sloping. But how about this? During the 1980s, okay, it seems differently. Okay, during the 1980s, okay, the highest is the 3 months monthly bill interest rate, and then the 3 to 5 year averages. The lowest is the 20-year averages. Okay, so around the 1980s, the interest rate, the yield curve looks different. Okay. So the horizontal axis represents the interest rate. That's vertical. Horizontal is maturity date. So around the 1980s, okay, the 3-month interest rate is the highest. Then 3 to 5 year, the 3 to 5 year bond, okay, the interest rate is lower than the 3 months. And then the lowest is the 20 years. So in this case, during the 1980s, the yield curve is downward sloping. So we understand that, okay, the yield curve is not always upward sloping or downward sloping. Okay, sometimes it might be a flat curve. Okay, However, from the figure what we have learned, okay, most of the time, okay, as time goes by, okay, even though these three bonds have different maturities, but they move together, okay, as time goes by, okay. And the second one is that when the short-term interest rate, okay, okay, let's say after the 1980s, when the short-term interest rate is low, okay, the yield curve is upward sloping, okay, and during the 1980s, okay, that's the case that when the short-term interest rate is high, okay, then we end up having a downward sloping yield curve. Okay, but most of the time, we have detected a upward sloping yield curve. Okay. So that's the term structure of interest rates. Okay. The first one, interest rates on bonds of different maturities move together over time. And when short-term interest rates are low, yield curves are more likely to have an upward slope. And when short-term rates are high, yield curves are more likely to slope downward and be inverted. And most of the time, yield curves, okay, are always slope upward. Okay. Oh, by the way, I need to discuss this with you because you need to submit your proposal tomorrow, right?
Yes.
But I give you a homework, and that's due tomorrow. So, would you like to, do you want me to extend a deadline for either of them?
Yes.
To extend the homework or to extend the proposal?
Extend homework.
Homework. Okay. So, for the homework, okay. Let's see. Let me do that.
Should I upload the PPT? No.
Oh,
Or
oh.
only the proposal only?
Yeah, the proposal.
Ah.
Yeah. So for today's exercise, do you want me to extend to next week?
Yes.
To next week. Okay, let's do that next week. Next Friday, May 7th. Okay. And before 5 p.m. Okay, next Friday. How about your proposal? Do you need to extend the deadline? Because according to the deadline, okay, let me check.
I guess it's today. By
Oh,
5.
it is due today.
Yeah,
Oh,
by 5.
oh,
It's due today by 5 o'clock.
oh, proposal. Yeah, okay. Yeah, due today. Okay. So are,
Not yet.
oh, you are not yet.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But yeah, because some students have submitted their proposal, I cannot change the deadline.
After
It-
after this.
After the class. Oh, okay. Okay, so you don't need to worry about the homework today. Just focus on your proposal. Okay. And then I'm going to stop here. Okay. Then I will leave the presentation. Okay. So who would like to make the presentation first? Oh, okay. Do we need to take a 10-minute break?
Yes.
Okay. Let's take a 10-minute break, and then Ryan will present the proposal first, and then Patrick. Oh, do you need to do that next Thursday?
No, it's okay.
You can do that today. Okay, good.